Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Parker. I cover trans news. So I want to talk about trans youth today because what Donald Trump and the MAGA cult are doing to these children is disgusting, deadly, and dangerous. So let's talk about this article. This is from womensmediacenter.com. It says President Trump's second term in office has ushered in an era of unprecedented rollbacks to LGBTQ civil rights, with a laser focus targeting trans people, especially trans youth. The attacks are coming from all three branches of the federal government, because these are all controlled by Republicans right now, as well as state legislatures where over 600 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced this year alone. The Trump administration is poised to prohibit the use of funds from Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program for gender-affirming healthcare to patients under the age of 18. So this is crucial, life-saving medical care for trans youth that he is restricting. An additional proposed rule reportedly would more broadly eliminate federal Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements to hospitals that provide gender-affirming care for youth. The proposed rules could render access to pediatric gender-affirming care nationwide extremely difficult, if not impossible, to obtain. There are already 40% of trans youth that live in a state that restricts or bans gender-affirming healthcare, including puberty blockers and hormones. This care is crucial for the treatment of gender dysphoria, which can cause depression, anxiety, and suicide. So the argument from the MAGA cult, which is a lie, is that trans people have mental health problems, which is a complete lie. That's not true. When trans people start developing mental health problems is in a situation like this, where their required medical care is ripped away from them, like Donald Trump is doing. And these are children we are talking about. This is disgusting. This care is crucial for the treatment of gender dysphoria. So trans people, we have to go through mental health counseling in order to get on this medication. So it is a complete lie that being trans is a mental health problem. That's just the uneducated MAGA base that thinks that. Having access to all aspects of gender-affirming care has been life-saving for children. However, when gender-affirming healthcare is taken away, gender dysphoria doesn't go away, and the distress will come back. There's probably additional harm from having received the treatment they need and then having that care taken away, which adds a whole other element of very serious harm. This is a doctor who is talking about this. So President Trump began his second term by issuing several executive orders targeting trans people. The following week, hospitals around the country abruptly halted this care, canceled appointments, and turned away transgender patients. This is why we're seeing families with trans children leave the country. They're getting asylum in other countries because the United States government is persecuting trans children and trans adults like me. So the federal policy director at the Williams Institute, which is a research center that focuses exactly on these issues, said, in addition to the harm caused by the executive order itself, the descriptions and language used are inaccurate and misleading and don't come from the large body of research and science that surrounds gender-affirming care. What she's referring to is when people on the right say that gender affirming surgery is surgical mutilation. When if you look at statistics, underage cisgender girls have way more breast implants surgeries than underage trans girls. Trans people are only 1% of the population. So in regards of costs and everything like that, trans people are nothing. 1%. And not all trans people have surgery. A lot of trans people don't. So also in that language from the right is using the term biological male, biological female, which when they say that, they are saying that if you're born a boy, you will always be a boy, no matter how you look, no matter how you identify, etc., etc. But that completely ignores science, research, and fact. And the fact is, gender is a spectrum. People exist all over that spectrum. So research shows that just being aware of anti-LGBTQ policies, even without being directly affected, sharply increases rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. There's a lot of research to demonstrate that even before these sorts of national level restrictions started taking place, LGBTQ people living in states that were restricted around access to healthcare or services were negatively impacted in terms of their well-being. This is due to like social stigma and Christian extremism being violent and hateful towards transgender people. But also just denying the existence of trans people, which is what Donald Trump did when he gave the executive order that there are only two genders. That is a lie. That is false. I'm transgender. I'm here. I'm real. I am not a man. I see women's doctors. I am on hormones, so my entire body is full of estrogen, no testosterone. If I don't go to a women's doctor, they won't know what the fuck to do. So to call me a man is a complete lie. And these people love to call me a man. The emotional and mental strain of a parent concerned about whether they can get necessary and scientifically backed healthcare for their child. There's the emotional strain of the fear of what the administration is doing. And there's the financial questions around not only paying for care, but figuring out where to travel to get care. That's what people are being forced to do right now, is to find wherever they can go that is going to treat them is where they're going to go. Right now in the US, that's blue states. No red states are, they're all capitulating to Trump and the cult. Although it's been less than a year since Trump began his second term, the proliferation of anti-LGBTQ policies and sentiments coming from the White House, especially the ones aimed at trans people, have had almost immediate impacts. Transgender and non-binary people are making major life changes in response, including to a different state or country, being less visible, and changing jobs, according to a new report by the MAP project. What we see from this study is that for trans people, this political agenda is driving trans and non-binary people out of public life and are essentially becoming internal refugees within the United States. And so another thing you'll see right now coming from the MAGA cult is that there's a reduction in the self-identification of LGBTQ people, which is false. There are not less gay and trans people right now. There are less people identifying that way because of this bullshit discrimination. That is why people are scared to identify as trans or gay right now. That is why there's a reduction in the numbers. Because trans people's lives are at risk right now. Hate crime attacks go up with this type of rhetoric. This is hateful Christian extremism. These are